I just hit record. This is for Elaine.
Hi, Elaine.
She's not here. It's for her to watch later, which she probably won't watch, but you know. Huh? When did you miss?
Yesterday.
I posted a video.
Never mind.
Listen, you got to go to YouTube. I'm not putting it on Canvas because, dude, I'm not doing that. It's too much work. You know what I mean? I got the next thing to do. So I'll upload it to YouTube. You got to go to my channel if you miss class, right? How long you got that? Okay. I've seen a couple views on my stuff, not like in the past where I would have a lot of views because we were hybrid, but I'm trying to post for people that are missing school. Okay. And we just got one missing today, and that's Elaine. Okay. So hopefully Elaine will watch this. That was a text message just came across on the iPad from my wife to a painting guy. She finally settled on some paint for the house. Okay. We've had the siding up for 2 weeks. Can't figure out what paint.
What color is it?
Oh, really cool names here. Plymouth Rock for the base.
That's so good.
Yes. And Greek Villa for the trim.
Multicultural.
You can't go wrong. You got, it's kind of like democracy. Okay, you got, right? Yeah.
It all comes back to
Different
democracy.
forms of democracy. I know. She's like, what do you think? I like it. What do you think? I like it. I'm not getting involved. Okay. All right. So that's good news. So last thing we were talking about was the reason why political parties have reduced in power and importance. They used to be important. They're not as important. And political action committees are one of the reasons, the fourth reason why. Okay. These are relatively new, guys. Remember when we talked about factions with Alexander Hamilton? We went outside and talked about trying to limit interest groups is a way of stifling liberty. Okay. And so there have been attempts in recent American history to try and limit the amount of money people can give to campaigns and to candidates and stuff like that. And so these things were born out of that. Okay, there's something that go back about 20 years called the McCain-Feingold bill. It was a thing that tried to limit they had what was called soft money and hard money. So like if I give, the most I could give at the time that was found unconstitutional, but was $1,000. The most that any person can give to a candidate. Okay, but then you had that's the hard money. The soft money is all the money going to political action committees, to interest groups, to the parties, and they could spend as much as they want. Soft money. Okay, so these political action committees were born. Now, I have a little bit of a personal relationship with this here because of my wife. She works at Koch Industries, okay? And Koch has a political action committee called Koch PAC, okay? And what my wife does, she chooses to be a member of this, so they take out a little bit of money out of her check each month, and it goes towards this political action committee. And then Koch PAC spends money to try and help get certain candidates elected. Generally those that are pro-business, okay? And this is from the 2010 annual report of Koch PAC. Now, if my wife gave a lot of money to Koch PAC, she would get more benefits like that, get invited to golf tournaments and stuff like that. She doesn't golf. So, you know, there's some bigger perks you can get if you give more, okay? But anyhow, I'll pass this around, guys. It's kind of falling apart after 10 years. 11 years, but it has all the amount of money that they gave to the people. You'll recognize some of the names like Ted Cruz is in here, and the amount. Now, most of the names in here have an R next to it. Republican. There are some with D's as well, though. Okay, so we're looking for pro-business people, and Koch has business interests in many states. So they're spreading this out amongst the different states to the different candidates to hopefully elect those people, okay? This is another thing that you get for giving to Coke PAC, which is basically a directory of every member of Congress. Yeah, it's got all their contact information, what committees they're on, and so forth. That can be handy. My wife is a project manager. She's a chemical engineer and with an MBA. And so she runs basically expansion projects for ammonia plants that make nitrogen, that make fertilizer for Koch Industries, okay? Koch Agriculture. So Enid, Oklahoma, Fort Dodge, Iowa, Dodge City, Kansas, and Beatrice, Nebraska is where Koch has 4 of these nitrogen plants that make fertilizer. Okay, my wife has over 20 plus years has done projects in each of those facilities to expand them. Okay, because fertilizer's big business right now. We're trying to grow a lot of food for the world. We got to feed all the cattle, all the pigs, all that stuff. So you got to grow food for them as well. Okay, it's big business. She just asked Charles Koch a couple weeks ago for $109 million for an expansion project in Enid. Okay, the previous one was $400 million. Okay, so if she's running into trouble with the local government in Oklahoma, okay, or the state of Oklahoma, because she's working in Enid, she has that information in that thing to contact members of Congress from Oklahoma, okay, to say, hey, we're trying to invest in your community here, and people are giving us trouble, most notably the EPA, okay? So these PACs raise tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, okay? Now, some of these PACs are established for specific candidates. So let me take you back to 2016. I brought up Jeb Bush the other day. That's who the party really wanted. The Republicans really wanted Jeb Bush. Okay, he had a PAC with $46 million at the beginning of the campaign. Okay, which was the largest PAC that was focused on a singular candidate. All right, he was one of the first to drop out. This money doesn't guarantee you victory. You understand? It helps. Okay? But if you're not a good candidate and people don't like you, you're not going to get elected. Usually. I mean, really, to be honest, how many Democrats were super excited to go out and vote for Joe Biden? What percentage you think were like, man, I'm stoked. This is the guy that I've always wanted to be president, Joe Biden. Seriously. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but this is the truth, okay? Now, once you get the nomination, okay, you got 15 candidates. Once you get the nomination, that's where the money's, really important. In Kansas, for the state, for the House seat, the 4th district that we live in, most of the money you need is going to be in the primary, because we know we're going to elect a Republican. It's just going to be which Republican's going to get elected. So you need a lot of money up front for the primary. Once you get the nomination of your party, the money's going to come. Okay? That 4th district, guys, I looked into it. Because when Todd Tiahrt, who used to represent us now, you guys know it's Ron Estes today, right? I don't know if you guys know that, okay? When Todd Tiahrt decided to run for the Senate, he gave up his seat in the House. Now, he didn't win the Senate. Jerry Moran did from Hayes, okay? But that seat was open. So I asked a guy that graduated from here, that worked for Tiahrt, worked for Governor Brownback. I said, how much money would I need to raise to be competitive for a House seat for the 4th district? Okay? Because I thought about it. He said, at a minimum, you'd need $100,000 to try and be competitive. Because you're running against people like, do you guys know who Wink Hartman is? Owns Hartman Arena. Okay. There's a guy named Ruffin in town, used to own the dog track. He's a multimillionaire guy. Those are multimillionaires. Okay, so those guys ran. So if somebody like me wanted to put my name in the hat and run for the 4th District of Kansas, okay, I'd have to raise a lot of money. I don't really like asking people for money. You know what I mean? So I decided, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. One day, maybe. Now, if we're Facebook friends, when you graduate, which I am with a couple thousand former students, okay, I'll send you a note saying, look, you may not be a Republican anymore, but Mr. Ebright's running for Congress. Send me $50. If I can get all of my former students, send me $50. And if you're doing really well, maybe 100. Okay? Then I might have a shot to raise that kind of money. I'll let you know. Friend me when you graduate, if you do Facebook. I don't really do Instagram. Sorry. I'm on there, but I don't really do it. You know what I mean? I don't check it. Twitter, look out. All right. So those are the reasons why. And guys, these raise a lot of money. The party, these raise way more money than the parties now. These PACs. Okay. And then there are some single issue PACs that I'll talk about a little bit later that can have an impact on an election and have in the past. Okay. So I'll bring that back up a little bit later. So we're going to change directions now. We got a new header. Okay. And it's going to be called, we're going to talk about voting. Voter qualifications is the next header. Okay. Voter qualifications. Okay. So, guys, we have 50 different models when it comes to federal elections. Every state is different. Okay. And so they have some things in common and some things that are different. Okay. Let's talk about things they have in common. All states. Because this comes down to the Constitution. Okay. So the state has the right to set voter qualifications with some exceptions. They can't. Okay. So number one, states cannot deprive the right to vote based on race, color, past servitude or slavery, or gender. So that takes us to the 15th Amendment, the 19th Amendment, yes? They cannot tax you to vote, which would be what amendment? Nice, that was quick. 24th Amendment, no poll taxes. Now, here's another one. Now, this isn't in the Constitution, but it is part of federal law. You cannot set a maximum voting age. So look, you hit 90, sorry, you're done. Can't vote anymore. Can't do that. And you can't make literacy a requirement. That comes from the Voting Rights Act of 1970. Now, most states have the following qualifications. Number one, most states have these qualifications. You have to be a U.S. citizen. Okay, so let's talk about this, guys. Most people don't realize this. There's nothing in the United States Constitution that says you must be a U.S. citizen to vote. Most states make it a requirement. California has allowed non-citizens to vote in school board elections because their children may attend those public schools. And therefore, since their children go to school there, even though they're not a citizen, they allow them to vote in those elections. Okay? Now, you guys know as well as I know, don't be surprised if some states start allowing anybody to vote, whether they're a citizen or not. I can see that happen. Residency. Most states require residency. Actually, all states require residency. You have to live in that state to vote. Okay? How long? $30 days. 30 days. Well, you move. I mean, some people move in September. Some people move in October. The election's in November. You're not going to let them vote? Now, 30 days is going to prevent you from having jayhawkers and border ruffians, bushwhackers. You guys remember that? The Missouri-Kansas thing? Right? What was a bushwhacker? Now, the bushwhacker, if you go to Florida, North Florida, to the Redneck Riviera, and you go to the Sand Shaker on Pensacola Beach, they have a drink called the bushwhacker, okay? Which you can get on other beaches as well, not just Pensacola, but that's where it was born. Phenomenal. When you're 21. It's a frozen drink. Okay. Phenomenal. Okay.
The residency is required for every state?
Yes. Okay, so usually 30 days. This prevents people from crossing over borders to vote. Okay. 30 days is going to give you hopefully enough time to know the candidates that are running. Okay, and the issues that face that community. Now, what if you go out of state to college? Let's talk about it. First thing you're going to need to do is know the law in that state. Any of you guys going out of state? Where are we going?
Colorado.
Colorado. Okay, so you look it up, just do a search. Okay, out-of-state students voting in Colorado. Google it. Okay, now, if you're not going to be home in November 3rd, which most people aren't, you don't have Thanksgiving break yet or fall break for college yet by November 3rd. Although generally you do get a nice long fall break in college. Okay, you can get an absentee ballot. Okay, from Kansas. All right. You go to the Secretary of State's website or just Google absentee ballot Kansas, and you can do that. Okay. Now, if you say you get involved in politics in Colorado at school, okay, and you want to support a particular candidate and you want to be able to vote for them, you have to claim your dorm room or your apartment, wherever you're staying, as your permanent address, and you can register to vote in Colorado. Okay, if you're going to school there. Most states will allow you to do that. Okay, to register in that state where you're going to school. All right. But it's easy to do absentee ballot.
Are you
Okay.
only allowed to work the polls for the place where your residence yet?
Not sure. Probably depends on the state. You cannot have okay. The minimum age is set at 18 years old, right? What amendment was that? 26. Okay. Could a state drop theirs to 16? Yes. My opinion, it's asinine. It's a terrible idea to allow 16-year-olds to vote. I know 16-year-olds sometimes have jobs and pay taxes, but 16-year-olds are generally clueless. Now, not all of you were clueless at 16. Okay? But most of the 16-year-olds are, and they're easily influenced. by parents, educators, and so forth. Okay? No. Bad idea. Okay. 49 of the 50 states require you to be registered in that state. So you must register to vote in order to vote. Only one state allows you to vote without being registered. And that's North Dakota. But you do have to show proof of address that you live in that state. Okay. If you're not registered, you can register in North Dakota, but you don't have to. Now, on registration, how many guys have registered to vote? Okay. The next election is going to be November 2022. Okay. There may be a primary before that. Okay. But that'll be a midterm congressional election. Okay. Usually they cut off registration 20 days before the election. Okay. So you got time. Okay. Once you're registered, you remain registered forever until you die. Now, if you move and change addresses, you need to re-register. Okay? Because you won't vote in the same place. You know what I mean? So if you move to Kansas City, Kansas, you probably need to re-register. Because you want to vote for those local elections that impact where you live, not the ones back in Wichita. That makes sense? Okay. Now, this is a problem. Sometimes, you ever heard this dead people voting? Okay. This really can take place in places that do not require ID to vote. All you have to do is look at the obituaries. Before we had voter ID in Kansas, all they would ask you is when you went up to vote, they would ask you your name and your address. So if you watch the obituaries and find out where this person died, where they lived, you could show up at their precinct to vote and just say, my name is John Doe. What's your address? You know it. You looked it up. You can vote. It takes the state, and this is usually done through the Secretary of State's office of all 50 states, to clear those voting rolls of dead people. Okay? Government is not efficient. So sometimes it takes years for them to get voter rolls clean of dead people. Okay? Do people cheat? Yes, they do. Okay? Now that's hard to do with voter ID. You got to show an ID. It's hard to do that. Okay? You have to be making a bunch of fake IDs. All right. Now, registration needs to be made easy. Okay? Like I told you guys, when I went to register to vote in 1986, I had to go to City Hall. Today, you can register at Dillon's, the post office, online. Okay? It's really easy to register to vote. I used to have some forms up there. Guess I gave them all out. Okay. All right. Now, in some states, you're not allowed to vote if. You can't vote if you are convicted of a felony. Now, some states are repealing these laws. Okay. So and some states are actually allowing people that are in jail for felonies to vote. But most states, you're not allowed to vote if you're a convicted felon. Okay. Like I said, you can probably figure out which party is changing the laws in those states. Mentally ill, if you're institutionalized, You know, one of the things I missed most because of this COVID thing this year is Matthew Dugan. I really miss seeing Matthew Dugan here. Matthew can't vote. You understand? Okay. Hope one day we get to see him back here again. If you have been dishonorably discharged from the United States military, you may lose the right to vote. Okay. So, voting. I asked who had registered. I got like 3 or 4 hands go up, right? Okay. Question is, will you do it? You know what I mean? Before that next election. So we're going to look at why people don't vote. Non-voting. Then we're going to look at why people do vote. Guys, on a normal year, okay, an election, presidential election year, in a normal presidential election year, the average turnout, what would you guess it is? It's about 60%. Now, some years it's slightly higher, some years it's lower, okay? Sorry, I'm looking for these notes that I made some, I researched some stuff here. If I can find them in here. Maybe not. Okay, I think I can remember off the top of my head a little bit here. So if you look at 2008, when Barack Obama ran for president, okay, it went up to 2008. It went up to 60%. Okay. In 2016, it was 55%. Okay. I haven't seen the turnout numbers for this this last election, but based on the numbers and stuff that I heard, it was very high, especially in some states. And some precincts were over 100%, which I don't know how that happens, but it's kind of weird. Detroit, Cleveland, Ohio's been known to go over 100%. Okay. All right. People, okay, that don't vote, okay? You've got those that don't vote, and you got those that can't vote. Okay? Those that can't vote, okay, is about 20%. Okay, so if you get 60% turnout, you got 40% that don't, right? 20% of that 40% can't vote. Why? They're a resident alien. We have a lot of people in this country that are here legally, that are not citizens, that can't vote. Right? Right? Okay, so that's, of this 20%, it's about 6% of people that can't vote. Okay? Another 6% say they were sick or physically unable to get to the polls. Okay? Now, we made a lot of adjustments with COVID. A lot of states did with voting. Okay? Some of those will stay in place, some of those won't. 3% of this 20% said they were traveling and forgot to get an absentee ballot. Now today, guys, we have early voting, like big time, right? You can vote 2 weeks before the election. Early voting. It's not really an excuse. 3% convicted of felonies. 1.5% mentally ill. and 0.5% of that 20% are Jehovah's Witnesses.
I don't
I
know.
forgot they can't vote.
What can
That's something about their religion. The other 80%,
what?
so the 80% that don't vote give excuses like, I don't think my vote will make it different. Doesn't really matter. Now, if you're a Democrat in the 4th District of Kansas in a midterm election, does your vote really matter? Hey, if the Republicans put up a bad candidate, it might. You know what I mean? If you're a Republican in New York City, you might see why people might say that. Another reason they give is I just don't trust any of those politicians. No kidding. Ah, I forgot to register, but I want to vote. Bad. I mentioned this one the other day. Oh, it got worse. That's horrible. It was pretty good the
That's
other
what
day.
I got the idea though.
Oh,
I didn't notice that the other day.
that's bad too.
You need to look at a map.
I know. What's this river called?
The Chattahoochee.
The Chattahoochee. Okay, time zone fallout. All right, this is east. This is central. Okay. Now, where this can also have an impact is on the West Coast. Okay, because the polls close on the East Coast at 7 o'clock. What time is it in LA? It's
No.
3.
No, I
Three.
know.
It's 3 hours. 3 hours behind. So it's 7 o'clock here. It's 4 o'clock there. Okay, by 5 o'clock, you're stuck on in the traffic in LA. They have really bad traffic out there. And you're headed home, you're gonna stop and vote. But you're hearing on the radio that particular candidate has won all these eastern states, right? You're like, oh, this is over. I'm not gonna go vote. I already know who's gonna win. You know what I mean? So you might have people not showing up to vote just because they think the election's already been decided. Now, good thing they didn't have television. They did have radio in 1948. But when people went to bed on the East Coast in 1948, everybody thought that Dewey, the governor of Illinois, was going to win the election. But when all the votes came in on the West Coast, Harry Truman had won the election. Chicago Sun-Times posted it. Dewey defeats Truman. Okay. Today, with time zone fallout and communication is better, you might have fewer people voting on the West Coast. Okay. That's the way it is. Monday Night Football. I don't know if you guys watch Monday Night Football, but the games start at 8 Central Time. So the people in LA, it's 5 o'clock. They can watch the game. If you live on the East Coast, that game started at 9. So you're not getting to bed if you're watching the game. You know what I mean? Until like midnight. I hate being on the Eastern time. Eastern time's the worst. I think Central's the best, personally. Okay. Weather. Bad weather. Sometimes people don't vote because of bad weather. Now, let me tell you this. One of the two political parties really hopes for bad weather on election day. Think about this for a second. Which party do you think's like, man, I hope there's a big snowstorm over the Midwest and the Northeast? Republicans hope for bad weather. Look, guys, the suburbs tend to be a little bit more Republican. Rural areas, very Republican, right? People in rural areas are used to bad weather. They got to drive, if you're a farmer, that snow's not going to bug you. You know what I mean? But if you live in the city and you don't have a car, you might have to walk to your polling place or hail a cab or something like that. Okay? It's going to depress turnout if there's bad weather. And talk about the urban areas, heavily Democratic, right? So Republicans hope for bad weather on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. Okay. Some people are just happy with the way things are. Everything's fine. I don't need to vote.
Well, like, we can't usually say. Okay.
Voting behavior. Wait, one more thing. Oh, why do the 60% of people that do vote, why do they vote? The number one reason, let me give you a new political term, political efficacy. Efficacy, let me spell that for you. E-F-F-I-C-A-C-Y, political efficacy. Those people believe it is their duty to vote. It's their patriotic duty. Sorry. Another reason why people may vote is the closer the election, the more competitive the election's going to be. People want to be part of that. Like, this is going to be a really close election. I'm going to be part of that. I'm going to go vote. Okay. If it's going to be a landslide, people are less likely to vote. Now, let's talk about those people that are who are more likely to vote demographically. Old people vote in much higher numbers than young people. Why? Well, they see the importance of it. With age comes wisdom. Okay. You know who else votes? Married people vote. Educated people vote. The more educated you are, the more likely it is you vote. Again, wisdom. The longer you live in one location, the more likely it is you vote. The stronger your party affiliation, which again is something that is diminishing in recent years. And then the closer you live to the polling place, where you vote, can impact. Yeah, that's pretty easy. And I can walk to mine as well. And did last time. Because I was kind of in that walking thing. Okay. All right, how much time we got?
You got
4 minutes? Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is voting behavior. Voting behavior. We're really going to get into some demographics here that are changing, actually. All right. So I don't want to open that can of worms and not finish it. So we're going to knock off right there. Okay. Now, before you start talking and stuff, let me talk to you.